Arguing with a leftist is as fruitful as banging your head against a wall. When I started making YouTube videos 4 years ago, I believed most people respected the truth first and foremost, truth being defined as what the evidence leans towards. I soon found that no matter how truthful you are, certain people will not only ignore your arguments, they'll try to attack you for daring to contradict their own beliefs, as well as try to undermine truth in any way possible. So today, I have a very different view of people, and unfortunately, it's nowhere near as optimistic. I still believe that some people are rational, but I now realize that I have to be realistic when it comes to my expectations. Today, it's the political left above all that stifles the battle for truth, a battle that's played out in many times and places in history. From the academic world of social justice warriors and leftist professors to feminist politicians such as Hillary Clinton and Harriet Harman, the left brainwashes and intimidates the masses into conforming to their ideology, while masking its left-wing agenda behind euphemisms and Orwellian language. At the same time, the left is quick to identify its enemies as traditionalists, conservatives, capitalists, and other labels that put them on the right. Pejoratives such as xenophobe, racist, homophobe, and other slanderous accusations are then associated with such values, so anyone that disagrees with the left is made into a social pariah. Drawing on my own experiences and research, this video will explain how this agenda operates. The modern left emerged out of the 1960s and can be summed up with one slogan above all: the personal is political. This slogan highlights that leftists believe that political and personal experiences are inseparable. Therefore, every issue is the fault of society, and thus society's responsibility to fix. Along with this slogan, the left has deconstructed the manner in which people interpret truth, using pseudo-philosophy to destroy evidence-based reasoning. At the same time, the left endlessly criticizes society, teaching people that group consciousness is the only way to be free of oppression. People are then taught that they're oppressed by capitalism, Christian values, the nuclear family, and the Western way of life. Once everything that people believe in is torn down, they're reprogrammed to believe that only socialism can save them. What makes this entire process so insidious is that rarely will you hear the word socialism mentioned. What you will hear is a great deal about capitalist hegemony, Christian bigotry, the oppressive bourgeoisie, and other socialist rhetoric that you could only spot if you took the time to study this ideology in detail. This subtle brainwashing is no different to the techniques that cults take advantage of. The individual's sense of self is eroded so much that they stop thinking for themselves. Leftists do this by constantly attacking the individual's ability to think critically and stand up for themselves. Sometimes this occurs through the trauma bonding of group therapy. Sometimes it occurs through educational indoctrination in schools and universities. But in many instances, leftists attack those that disagree with them so viciously that they're too afraid to do it again. Another similarity to a cult is the fact that most people aren't aware of being brainwashed. This is why the majority of leftists in society are ignorant patsies, and why so much denial and hostility is the result of their views being scrutinized. However, in a minority of cases, those that support leftist ideology are true believers that will do anything for their ideology to succeed. Others are simply opportunists that see leftist ideology as a means to an end. It should now be easier to understand why arguing with a leftist is almost always the result of disagreeing with them, since years of social pressure and indoctrination has completely distorted their interpretation of reality. They rarely challenge their own beliefs and become very hostile if they feel pressured to do so. It doesn't matter how amicable you are when you disagree with a leftist's political beliefs. Any disagreement will quickly become a confrontation, where any contradiction to left-wing ideology is taken personally. This is another side of the slogan, "the personal is political." Leftists take everything personally and will attack you personally for daring to disagree with them. This results in ad hominems and other logical fallacies that derail any constructive exchange. Leftists have been trained by intellectual elites to behave this way. Saul Alinsky is someone I've mentioned before, a man that wrote Rules for Radicals. The 12 rules he compiled actively attempt to block out rationality, replacing it with groupthink where emotion drives interaction. Trying to break through this is almost always a waste of time. Reason and evidence is completely lost on leftists who feel no compassion towards those that aren't like them. Instead, they're taught to hate those that disagree with them and love only those that completely agree with their views. There is no compromise in the leftist's mind, and any concessions you make will only allow them to continue moving towards their goals later on. Ironically, it's the leftist that tries to accuse others of intolerance, but unless you're an out-and-out socialist, no leftist is going to see you as a fellow human being. To some people, this might sound harsh, but over and over again, this attitude is exposed in left-wing ideology. Herbert Marcuse is one prominent leftist intellectual that proves this. Many call him the father of the New Left, but others know him as a cultural Marxist that helped start the Frankfurt School. In his 1965 essay, Repressive Tolerance, Herbert Marcuse explains that tolerance should only be given to leftists. In other words, if you aren't an advocate of ever-increasing socialism, then you're not to be tolerated. This is the prevailing attitude in today's political climate, where anyone that disagrees with the leftist establishment is repressed with lies, slander, and defamation, until their very lives are left in ruins. Ironically, it's the left that tries to paint itself as the victim, even though the left is always on the offensive. This is just another political strategy, however. It's become one of the most popular strategies of the left to suggest that anything their opponents say or do is offensive. This is a form of professional victimhood, and once you become aware of this, it's alarming how prevalent it is. I've personally experienced this on social media websites such as Facebook, merely for politely challenging so-called friends when they post left-wing points of view. As I've grown to realise, you can't truly be friends with a leftist, and as I've moved further away from left-wing values over the years, my political beliefs have increasingly offended people that I would have once considered friends. This has now reached the point where I've experienced personal attacks and feigned offence for the slightest thing, even for mentioning tax loopholes in the European Union. Arguing with a leftist can be so erratic that it could be considered schizophrenic. They'll flip-flop between heightened levels of aggression to a lull where you might be led to believe you've reached an understanding, only to realise that the leftist was simply trying to reframe the encounter to their advantage, like suggesting you're being too sensitive. Leftists will also make snide and petty remarks, reframing this if it's pointed out by suggesting that their remarks were misconstrued or that you can't take a joke. Anyone that's researched personality disorders might notice that this is what you'd expect from a borderline, narcissist, or even a psychopath trying to wear down a person's natural defenses. They do this by confusing or assaulting people so much that they're too exhausted to fight back. This is bad enough when it comes from people online who you've never met, but increasingly I'm noting this among people I know offline, particularly towards people that support UKIP. The most important thing to remember when disagreeing with a leftist is that you have to pick your battles wisely, because once a leftist sees you as a threat, they won't stop until they destroy you. This might sound like hyperbole, but anyone that's crossed a leftist knows otherwise. This is Rocking Mystery, over and out.